Ding dong, the witch is dead, 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 dead.
Pacer Nation, we did it. Just like that, the curse is no more. 0-17 is over with. Snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and I can tell you right now, that pep in the step just hits a little bit differently when you break the curse. I got the receipts. I saw the hate on social media. A lot of Pacer fans saying some nasty things, but don't worry. It's all love. I love you all, and I saw a lot of love afterwards because we did it. I can show my face again. I can attend a game without everybody chalking it up as a loss. We did it. Halliburton, Neesmith, the boys had my back, and I can tell you right now, this was the sporting moment I have chased my whole entire life. I got to live it. Everybody who's been there along the way. 0-17 stretched along 7 years of L's is over. Pacer Nation, we're back, and we're up 1-0. Just like that, home court is ours. Let's get it.
This is for you, Indiana.
Neesmith, three, good! Another one from outside. And now it is a 6-point game again. Under a minute to go. Hart is right there. Pressure by the Pacers. Towns, Bridges, Towns to the hole. Neesmith again, three, got it! He's a flamethrower. Neesmith, it's a three. It's a 2-point game. It's a 2-point game with 22 seconds to go. Brunson to inbound.
Look at
Neesmith
this.
on the ball.
Oh, he slipped.
Oh, he did. And it's picked up by Hart. Now Brunson splits the D. Drives, flies, feeds. Clock is ticking. There's a Toppin foul on Town.
Anunoby has one more foul shot.
Try to compose yourself when the Pacers hit this game winner.
All right. He made the second. It's a 2-point game. Bring it to Lake, fellas, and hit a three. 2-point game, 6 seconds to go. Halliburton driving. He's in the lane. He nearly lost it. He backs up and unloads a three. Oh! That did not happen! It hit the back of the rim. It popped high into the air, and it dropped gently through the net. The scoreboard shows 125-125. It's called a 2-point shot.
Look at him. They got him in a torture chamber right there. Brunson, Towns, hard underneath Anunoby. Got it to go. Wow, what a nice knockaway inside. Great defense on the play by Turner. Nimhard, three, corner, good. It's Nimhard. Brunson right there playing with 5 fouls. And that's why he's Halliburton. And Bridges goes out on him. Toppin setting a screen, flying inside to the hole. And Halliburton fakes. This is a three. Oh, and slammed in by Toppin from 3 tonight. But hitting on every other metric. Makes a move, makes a fake, splits the D and cuts it to go. Knicks by 1. Halliburton with the ball. There's the screen. Now the switch. Inside. That's for 2.
Surprised though, New York's not going to put anybody on the ball. They made that inbounds very easy.
Here comes Toppin. Got it. Hit by Nimhard. Down by 3. Here is a 3 for the tie. Short. Caught by Hart. Out to Towns. To tie. No. Rebound. Fought for. Loose. Bridges has got it. Clock is ticking. Out of bounds. It's Indiana's ball. And the game is over and Indiana has won.
What's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. And here we are sponsored by the great folks over at Chat BC. And my, oh my, what a way to start the Eastern Conference Finals. The Indiana Pacers. They go into the Garden and they force an overtime and they win 138-135. And our guy Facci was there to break his 17-game losing streak. So he's got a little video that you guys probably already listened to at the beginning of this. But joining me in his stead is Dave Searle, the podfather of Pacers podcast from Miller Time Pod, to talk about this game. And Dave, I mean, where do we even start with this one?
Well, I'll just start real quick by making it very clear if anybody's kind of see this. I am wearing the Diff shirt. I'm not wearing Pacers blue and gold. I'm wearing actually the white and crimson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, but it's because I got the Diff shirt on. Looking pretty good, and I guess maybe it has magical powers. It's what I went to. Was it Game 5 against the Bucks series? I was wearing my shirt that was the Halle Mary or the Hail Mary or whatever you want to call it. I was wearing that shirt there, and then they hit that shot, and then each subsequent one I've been wearing the shirt of the last Halliburton miracle, and it worked again. So the game day debut of this shirt coincided with, and now who knows what they're going to come up with this. Maybe just twin choke signs would be what would be a good shirt to see. Just Aaron Neesmith hitting a bunch of threes. They'll figure something out. But you know, this was, I mean, words are hard to describe exactly what happened in this game. But man, what a win! It's you almost feeling kind of spoiled in a way because I let my had my family watch the winning time, Reggie Miller versus the New York Knicks, and then you see some of the big moments, and then afterwards you're like, oh yeah, but Reggie also hit this crazy half court shot against the Nets, and then he also hit this turnaround shot against the Bulls, and he kind of doing all this. It's all happened in one postseason, and it's they just spread it out a little bit more. It's amazing too. These kind of moments have been peppered throughout Pacers history, and they've been one of the teams that's been a little bit more fortunate to have these just like insane, iconic playoff moments. They've been a little bit spoiled with that relative to the number of championships they have, which is 0, of course. Yeah. To get this many in one playoff run is truly something that I've never seen a team do really in any sport. And Bill Simmons had a tweet or something that said like that's the most unbelievable ending I've seen. The craziest ending I've seen in the playoffs in a long time. I was like, dude, it's like the third craziest ending this year for this one team.
Yeah, I know. One each series. And they're, had one late in the Bucks series, one early in the Cavs series, now one even earlier in the Knicks series. I mean, this is what's really crazy because if you go back and look at just how this game kind of unfolded the way that it did, it's 94-92 and Jalen Brunson fouls T.J. McConnell to pick up his 5th foul. Pacers had done a good job in the third quarter to cut that 7-point halftime lead or 9-point halftime lead to 4 or 3, whatever it was. And they're right there, within striking distance, but a chance to cut it to 1 point. Jalen Brunson on the bench with 5 fouls. And you're thinking, okay, this is the Pacers' window of opportunity to get the lead here and go on a run. And all of a sudden, the floodgates open for New York and they get up to a massive, I believe it was a 17-point lead, 111-94 after a Karl-Anthony Towns 3, and you're just thinking, okay, this is probably not going to end well for the Pacers. They just look like they're a little bit overwhelmed, they're flustered, they're not playing their style. And then all of a sudden, this is when the flip switches and the Pacers just get hot and they go on one of these magical runs again. And so in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, Dave, I'm thinking, man, this just stinks. I really thought they were going to be a little bit more competitive in game 1, having this 8-day layoff. Did not expect them to get so far down, especially with, Jalen Brunson on the bench. And then they find themselves in this hole, but then all of a sudden, Aaron Neesmith goes 5 for 5 to end the fourth quarter, and the Pacers somehow find themselves in with an opportunity here to tie this game or win the game. And I'm just before we get to the Halliburton step back 3 that tied the game, what was your thought process? Just like as you're watching the Pacers just, make this lead disappear slowly, shot by shot, and then eventually tie the game here at end of regulation.
Well, like when that run happened, I mean, it seemed really unfortunate. You feel bad that there's a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes from Nembhard and Neesmith. I mean, just a couple of bad fouls. I mean, there's such a hard team to stop offensively. You can't give up 3-point fouls, especially in that situation. And obviously, that's a pretty bad thing. And OG got a couple buckets, and that's sort of exposed something that has been a genuine advantage for the Knicks. I mean, they traded so much to be able to get so much size and athleticism on the wing to support this team. And it really kind of shown in this game in particular. I mean, they just looked bigger than the Pacers. And, when they were really turning it on defensively, it looked genuinely hard for the Pacers to figure out how they were going to overcome that size. And especially, if they get open shots, you hope you hit them. But then when they get kind of inside to get some contested shots, a lot of those, they weren't having a lot of luck with that because they were just coming up against a constant stream of guys that were bigger and longer. And they were really struggling with that length a little bit. And that, that manifested in both their ability to score inside and also their ability to, kind of get rebounds. But, everybody anticipated rebounds as being a huge issue in this game. And I remember in the first half, there was a couple of times where, the Knicks looked like they were just going to completely outmuscle the Pacers, and just really had no chance at these offensive rebounds. I was like, man, they're kind of putting up a fight a little bit. It's not as bad as I thought. And they kind of looked at the box score a little bit. I try not to watch it look at that too much when I'm actually watching the game.
Mhm.
Like, man, rebound advantage wasn't really that big, and it does kind of get skewed a little bit by the fact that the Pacers were fighting hard a lot, and they end up tipping it out of bounds. That goes to the Knicks as a team rebound. It doesn't get attributed to any one particular player. I mean, I'm sure that they had an unusual number of those in this game, but they really fought for those boards. And really interesting kind of sub at the end of this game, taking Miles Turner out of this game and putting Obi Toppin in it, and I think that part of that was, Karl Anthony Towns is so good at hitting jump shots and then having a speed advantage on bigs. He likes to shoot jumpers, and then he likes to take that one big step and then go around a big and get to the lane. Well, Obi Toppin's quick enough to kind of stop that first step and kind of contest those threes a little bit. And I certainly wouldn't say that they completely shut him down, but that did kind of work a little bit. And when they were in this game, Obi Toppin ended up with more rebounds than Mitchell Robinson. He out-rebounded him in a similar number of minutes. Actually, he played one fewer minute. And so that's a really interesting way to kind of combat that rebounding advantage, because I was thinking, maybe Thomas Bryant, maybe get Tony Bradley, you brush the dust off of him and get him in the game, or maybe Jarris Walker is kind of guarding Mitchell Robinson off the bench. Obi Toppin, I mean, using his athleticism to be able to at least tip and contest and try to poke out in those situations, that seemed to work pretty well. And so that kind of developed later in the game. Like many, I was kind of watching the bench of the Knicks kind of really outwork the Pacers and really win those minutes. Worried about that in the future, but that Toppin adjustment might be enough to make that happen. And so, in addition to Aaron D. Smith just blame throwing, of course,
points in the
which led to this
quarter.
comeback. Part of that comeback was the Pacers just doing a sharper job of hounding everybody else. I mean, you're not really there's only so much you can do to stop Jalen Brunson, stop Karl Anthony Towns, but you've got to make life hard for everybody else. And that's just kind of been the formula they've been using in this playoffs. I mean, they don't really, in the modern NBA, it's extremely hard to stop stars from getting a decent amount of points, but you've got to make life a little bit more difficult for the extra guys. And that is the path. That's enough of a defensive edge to be able to win if you're hitting the shots well. The fact that it was game one, down 17 in Madison Square Garden, definitely gives you that shot of adrenaline to go nuts at the end of that game. But it kind of looked like a microcosm of the series from last year, where the Knicks were so good in the beginning, and then they just started to wear down. They just ran out of energy. The Pacers kept coming, and then that ended up being the difference in it. But we just saw it in this game where at the end of regulation, obviously there's an emotional deflation. But you look at overtime, and the Knicks just look tired.
Yeah.
Half the team's hobbling. Nobody's really being able to fight for loose balls. The Pacers are winning every single effort to lose balls. Aaron Nesmith almost got a putback dunk on the second Siakam miss again. It's too bad that he wouldn't have got that. That he was very close to doing it again, but he was just nonstop. And not just hitting threes, but he just didn't stop running. And they had a little post game quote from him talking about how important his energy was in this game, and he talked about the fact that this week he ramped up his conditioning to be ready for this series, which I thought it's like, man, in a week you can get that much of a. But it continues to pay off. I mean, the Pacers are able to go fairly deep into this bench. The Knicks only had 3 guys playing off of the bench, and the Pacers were able to go 5 deep in this game. Part of that's because of the Shepherd experiment. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jarris Walker be put into the mix in future games, and it just kind of continues to pay off to have fresher Pacers at the end of these games. And I think that that's other than just being a team of destiny and magic and all that other stuff. One of the things that are fueling these comebacks is the fact that the Pacers just continue to be fresher than other teams when it matters most.
Yeah, I mean, and you bring up some good points. I want to piggyback off that a little bit. I think Ben Shepherd not playing until the fourth quarter when the game felt like it was out of hand, kind of felt like, oh, the Pacers are throwing in the towel. And I felt like the Knicks kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, got a little bit excited because they were up big game one of the Eastern Conference Finals, and they just let the Pacers get a little bit comfortable, and they started hitting shots. And as you're slowly seeing the lead go from 17 to 10 to 5, now you're thinking, do the Pacers actually have a chance to do this? And they did, because we've seen them do it so many times before. But I think you bring up a great point, because I think one of the biggest talking points there at the end of the game was Pacers are up by 3 after Obi Toppin gets that dunk. He should have got a foul. Mikal Bridges slapped him on the arm when he did dunk it there to give the Pacers a 3-point lead with about 14, 15 seconds left in the game. And the Pacers elect not to foul, and they elect to play defense on this. And I knew they were when they put Nesmith back out there and Nembhard back out there, because they both had 5 fouls. If you're going to foul, those guys wouldn't be on the court. So I think that did play a factor into it, because they knew their best players on defense didn't have fouls to give, number one. But number two, you talk about it, they were tired. The 3 that Brunson took was an air ball. And then Karl-Anthony Towns gets a 3, he shoots an air ball. So it's like they had 2 looks there that were complete air balls, and it just showed you how tired they were at the end of the game. And those same 3s that they were missing were the same ones that Nesmith and Nembhard were hitting in overtime, because they're just more conditioned for this style of pace. And I know it's an overtalked point, but is it really overtalked if it's really what's happening in the game? The Pacers were just able to kind of wear them down as time went on, and you saw Obi Toppin looked fresh out there in that fourth quarter in overtime. The steal that he had in overtime, it didn't lead to points. Nesmith did kind of flub the layup there a little bit, but still, like, they had a chance to go up and get some more points there in transition, and I felt like Nembhard did a terrific job in the overtime. I think he had 7 points in the overtime, if I'm not mistaken. He had a beautiful step-back 3, and then he had a drive on Jalen Brunson that was great, and then a backdoor cut that Halliburton found him on for another 2. So it was just like, you saw so many different players stepping up for the Pacers at different times. It was Miles Turner in the first quarter, right, with the 11 points. Halliburton starts going in the second. And then in the fourth, it was Aaron Nesmith, and then in overtime, Andrew Nembhard, where if you're looking at the Knicks, it was pretty Towns and Brunson heavy. And I think this is where the Pacers have the advantage. Even though we saw some good moments from Hart and Bridges and OG, you're seeing the Pacers' depth play a huge factor in how they're able to kind of win these kind of games and just wear you down, and they're never out when you think they're out.
And I think that they, like with Ben Shepherd kind of coming in, I do kind of suspect that, Carlisle does like doing, hey, if we've got time, whether it's a big lead or maybe it's a big deficit, let's just try something, do something a little different. Let's do a weird lineup. Let's do a weird substitution. Let's just see what happens. Let's use this as an opportunity to learn a little bit more. Obviously, it was nice that they feel to come back with it. But I wouldn't be opposed to the Pacers for the rest of the series saying, who's going to guard Brunson? Well, let's just give 5 minutes each. Nesmith, Nembhard, Shepherd, maybe throw Walker in there, almost like a hockey line. Just keep switching. Just have a couple players play intense defense for 2 to 3 minutes. Do everything you can not to foul. If he fades away and scores, then that is what it is. And then, just stay in front of him and just hound him as much as you can. And just kind of spread that out a little bit. And each one of those players represents a different kind of style, a blend of size and speed and, different defensive positioning. Let
me cut you off real quick. I'm curious your thoughts real quick. What did you think of Mathurin and McConnell's defense on Brunson throughout the game?
I don't think that we can not have McConnell guard Brunson ever again. I think that would be fine. With Mathurin, I don't know how much I saw of it. I mean, theoretically, because of his strength and size, he would be a good defensive matchup.
Mm.
He's just not someone that is maybe as consistent, and I don't really trust him as much to not foul Brunson. But having him in the mix in there, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it. But it did stand out to me in this game how he did it. how did
Yeah.
you see him playing?
I thought he had some decent moments at times. I think the initial defense was good, but if the ball got reversed and then came back to him, he'd get hung up on screens. There was one where Miles McBride kind of came, and you could tell he was coming to set the screen for Brunson, and he gets hung up in it, wants Halliburton to switch, and then Brunson just hits a step back over Halliburton. There was one where he actually played really good initial defense, and then Mitchell Robinson got an offensive rebound, then it kicked back out, and then he got another look. So it's little things like that. Like, I'm not expecting him to be great, but I do think that he does give you some size, like you mentioned. I don't know if I trust Jarris Walker as much as you do, though, because he was really bad in the Cavs series. He was good in the Bucks series, was like almost not playable in the Cavs series after his short stint that he had there. I just don't know how much you can trust him, especially in Madison Square Garden with the light shining this bright, never playing in it before and being so young. I would much rather try him at home first if that's what they're going to do. But I feel like it could be too big of a moment for him, but I could be completely wrong.
Oh, sure. I mean, I can agree with that line of logic. I would just be interested to see it, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the mix. And A, to keep other players fresh, and B, just he does have that strength that can match up with Brunson very well, I think. But if you wait until home to try it, I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's move on to Miles Turner here because a lot of people were asking, why was he not in the game at the end of the game? We talked about Obi Toppin, but he was out there to start overtime, and he did have a big block on Brunson that probably should have been a goaltending call. And I feel like he's gotten away with a few of these that have been very close to goaltends, if not goaltends, that they haven't called. And I would just say this. When you're that close to a play, never give up on a play. Even if it feels like you might get called for it, just go all out and you risk that, right? I feel like Miles was so good in the beginning of the game. I mean, the first 6 minutes of this game was like insane. The Pacers did not miss a basket until Nembhard missed a step back three or whatever it was with like 6 minutes into the first quarter. I mean, this team was just on fire, and it was everybody had scored too at one point. So when you look at the way Turner kind of got himself going early on and then slowly just kind of got pulled out of the game, I'm curious what they do moving forward with Miles, because we kind of saw that at times last year, and you felt a little bit more confident because Isaiah Jackson was so good in the role that he played as that lob kind of thread, a lot quicker on his feet. And I don't think if you're a Pacer fan, you probably trust Thomas Bryant as much. This is where Obi Toppin can play a huge factor like we saw against the Celtics at times. But yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts on what you saw from Miles in this game and how he can be utilized moving forward.
Well, it looked like, he took a shot or two, and it looked a little off. So it looked like he didn't have that going necessarily. And he was just struggling on rebounds, and obviously this is something that's a big point of emphasis in this series in particular. We've known about this about Miles Turner in his whole career, and it looks that the Knicks weren't necessarily getting like a layup line. It's like they weren't scoring inside. They were getting a good position in the mid range and then stepping back a little bit to hit shots or maybe hitting some threes. That makes Miles Turner's defense a little bit less important. And then you look at the struggles that he was having on the 3-point and rebounding, and then also his struggles in keeping up with Karl Anthony Towns when he drove, and so you kind of add up all the different things that Miles Turner can be a positive on the court. You take away that 3-point shot and you look at this particular team, it made it a little bit tough. And when they put Toppin in, he made kind of an immediate change because obviously his athleticism was causing some problems for Karl Anthony Towns. It wasn't necessarily shutting him down, but it was helping a little bit. Then on the rebounding side, he was doing a very good job as well. And then finally, if he's running around, he had obviously the dunk, and he had several great moments on the offensive end. Towns is nowhere to be seen in this because he cannot keep up with Toppin in any way, shape, or form, and so that creates a huge mismatch on the offensive end. And where do you even put Towns in that situation? It's like there's nowhere he can go essentially to be an impact on defense, and you're almost removing him from the team entirely when Toppin is out there. So it was a really interesting counter, and it worked very, very well. And so I think that was the fact that Turner wasn't maybe money on his shot, combined with just, man, we've got this puzzle that we've got to solve to be able to win this game. Toppin kind of unlocked just too many different things. And ended up being a cog that helped the Pacers in that particular situation. If Turner wants to be out on the floor in the fourth quarter, he's got to keep Towns in front of him on drives. You just can't let him do that. And also, he was overall good in this game offensively, maybe just hit a few more shots. I mean, obviously that always helps. And then just do a better job on the boards. He doesn't necessarily have to grab a ton of boards, but he definitely needs to at least get some tips or block somebody out or maybe a factor. But, we see even Neesmith get into the action and just tip the ball out or just cause a little bit of chaos on the rebounding side when they were trying to solve the puzzle on how to fix the rebounding. A lot of the issues I think were stemming from Miles Turner and his presence on the inside. And so I think that was the final decision that kind of got him off the floor. I don't think that it's going to be like pull him out of the starting lineup or anything.
No.
And I think he's going to get plenty of a workout on the court. But he's just got to do a better job inside rebounding and keeping Towns in front of him if he wants to stay on the court in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, that first quarter, he was 5 of 5 for 11 points. He just goes 1 of 6 the rest of the game. And so I just feel like, if he's not going to be a monster on the glass, he's got to continue to, hurt the Knicks with his outside shooting, which, we've seen at times him do that, but it's not been, frequent enough, I guess you could say, in this run, I guess. But I would say for the most part, he's been really good this year. And that's what makes it so interesting because Towns was hitting some ridiculous shots, and I feel like aside from Brunson, like he was the number 2 guy for the Knicks, and like he's a tough matchup for Miles, and I feel like he always has been throughout his career. It's not just dating back to the beginning of the season. I mean, you're going back to when he was drafted against him, in 2015. So it catches a really good player, but you're right. With Miles, I wouldn't change too much. Just keep doing what you do and keep making them work. I think that's the big thing is just continue to utilize Cat in those pick and rolls, make him work defensively. And same thing with Brunson. I feel like at times, and I don't know if you felt this way or not, with Brunson primarily guarding Aaron Neesmith, I felt like at times, especially early on, they were not getting him involved enough in the actions. And I feel like Aaron Neesmith has become such a good shooter that you could almost use him as a ghost screener or different things to get Brunson involved in more of the switches and the actions, because once they went over to put Brunson on Nembhard, the Pacers went right at that because they trust Nembhard's ability to drive and get to the basket. But with Brunson kind of being, the heliocentric player almost for the Knicks, I feel like they've got to make him work on defense. Same with Towns, because if those two guys have to, exert so much energy on that end, I don't think they're conditioned. Like you mentioned earlier, Aaron Neesmith, they don't have that week training camp like Aaron Neesmith does to get his body into another level, playing 94 feet and then shooting the lights out like he did in the fourth quarter and overtime. So I just think that if they can focus more defensively on those two guys and making them work, I think that would be, very helpful for the Pacers, especially in the longevity of a 7-game series.
Yeah, and one thing that I kind of noticed on the Bucks that made me laugh, I mean, we saw like DeLon Wright come in for that one possession, right?
26 seconds.
Of the, yeah, he's his minutes are null. It's not applicable, and he was a -2. Not his fault. Not his fault, but
Yeah.
So technically, it was a 9-man rotation for the Knicks, but really, it was 8. And man, I mean, you always say, I mean, how many playoff series have I seen? And it's you take that game one, if a team gives a really good punch, takes a big lead, and then it leaks away, it's just such a heartbreaker. And now not only have they squandered a really good punch that they gave to the Pacers, they've given up home court with it too. That's a pretty tough pill to swallow, I think, for the New York Knicks to be able to play this well. I mean, you had superstar games from Brunson and Towns. You had excellent games from Bridges and OG. I mean, that's what you traded everything for. And you just had so many great plays in so many different ways to just do all of that and still walk away without a win. And then now you're facing you're in a hole now, and you've gone through one game of this, and a couple of people are hobbling off the court at the end of it, and now you're staring at the rest of this series. That's a tough loss, I think, for Knicks fans. I would say that is not the way that you want to start the series, and so much of that kind of points positively in the direction of the Pacers, I think, because as we've mentioned, like, Shepherd and Walker, I feel like they have two solid players that can contribute to a rotation that barely were a factor in this game. They've got reinforcements if they need it. This was an overtime game, and yet Nemhard only played 35 minutes. Neesmith was under 40. That's crazy for an overtime.
Yeah.
Turner had 31. So, and they also had the benefit of extra rest because they took care of the Cavaliers earlier, and so that portends very well for the Pacers in the future. Now, as I say that, I feel like that's almost like a guaranteed game 2 loss because as soon as like the Pacers get an edge, as soon as they get an advantage, and it looks like things are looking good, they're going to get waxed in game 2. It would be my imagination, and then hopefully they'll get the 2 at home. But Pacers prove me wrong. Come out ready to take over the world, hit the first 10 shots again. That would be nice. And take another game in New York would be very sweet. But how could you? Is this the best case scenario for a Pacers win? I kind of even feel if they won by 20, it'd be worse.
Yeah.
The fact that they absorbed such a huge punch in 2 huge games from the stars of the Knicks, and everything seemed to go right for the Knicks, except for just a couple minutes at the end of the game. Other than that, they played it amazing. They did exactly what they wanted to do. They executed a perfect game plan. And now they walk out of here with a loss. That's almost better, I think, in the long run than just, you walk away with a game where everything goes wrong and the team can't hit anything, and then you just shake it off and you go into the next game. They played an awesome game. I was very impressed with them in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I was very worried about how big they were and how much size that they had and what the Pacers were going to do to solve that. And now they're just sitting there. They got a day to stare at the wall and then try to give it a go again on Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because when I was watching the matchups, I think there was so much conversation of who's going to guard who and how are they going to guard them, and that was what I was really focused in on. And we see Neesmith get the first assignment on Brunson, and then we see Nembhard on Josh Hart, and they have Halliburton guarding Bridges, which I thought that was a little bit interesting. And then at halftime, they switched that matchup, so it was just constantly changing things up with these cross matches. But for the most part, we did see Turner on Towns, and when we saw Siakam strictly with OG for the majority of the game. So I think those two kind of were locked in, but the guards were all switching a little bit in terms of who they were guarding. And so I thought that was really fascinating to me, how they started out, how they switched things up. And I like your idea of just constantly throwing different looks at Brunson because he's so good. Like, you're not going to stop him with just one guy, and you don't want to overexert somebody's energy or get them into foul trouble. I understand Nembhard and Neesmith are going to be your guys that you're going to rely on the most to guard him, and especially in crunch time, those are guys you're going to throw on him at the end. But, they've got to be able to utilize other guys just to make sure that they're not out of breath when these games are close like this. But I did want to get your thoughts on this because you kind of talked about like just how deflating this game 1 loss is for the Knicks because of the way that it happened and of course losing home court advantage. But when you're just looking at a series in general, how big is that first game win for the team that gets it, just for the kind of setting the tone for the rest of the series?
Well, part of it is sort of like a causation and correlation thing. The better team tends to win game 1. And so, they always say the team that wins game 1 goes on to win the series X amount of time. Well, a lot of that's because the best team beats the team that's not as good, and then they win the series, right? It's hard when we as fans think about the game. We might spend a couple hours afterwards kind of scrolling Twitter and like thinking about it a little bit. Then we got to like go to bed and go to work and take care of responsibilities, all that stuff. The players are going to just be thinking about this 24/7, obviously. Well, not 7, but 24/2, I guess, until the next game. And then you just start doing the math in your head. It's like, well, we just lost game 1. Well, now we got to win 4 out of 6, and now we got to win 1 in a row. And like the math catches up to you so fast when you lose that first game. It's like, crap. Now, if we win all our home games, we still lose the series.
Yeah.
Now, if we have to win, 4 games out of 6, and if we win 3 games out of 5, we still got to win a game 7. Like, it's just like, dang. And then now, if you're the other team, it's just like, oh, well, now we just win the home games, we're done. That's it.
Mhm.
and obviously that's a very, very different thing to have. And then it's also just, a knowledge of how basketball works. You're not going to have huge games every game. There's going to be an ebb and flow. You're going to have it some nights. You're going to struggle some others. Those are two awesome games from Towns and Brunson. Two top-notch, superstar, incredible games that could be cemented as, like some of the best playoff games of their career if they had won. And they did it together. And then they got these role players on the wings that also put up very, very good games. Shot the ball well, played great defense, just did everything that you asked of them. They still lost. And it is kind of like you mortgage your entire future to be able to get the assets, have the guns for this. And he put it all in there, and it all worked, and he still lost the game. That's just all. I think that's gotta. I mean, I'd be thinking about it. That's for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that has got to be a tough thing to sit with for a couple of days.
Well, and they built this roster too to beat the Celtics. They didn't beat it to beat the Pacers, and so now
Right.
that they've taken care of the Giants, they thought they were going to have to slay to get to the NBA Finals. They've got this other giant here in the Pacers that I don't know if they really took super seriously. I think they did coming into the game. I don't think they disrespected them or anything like that. But
I think they did, yeah.
you think they disrespected them a little bit? Maybe a little bit.
No.
They
I
took
think
them
that
serious,
this
took
was
them
very
serious.
serious. I think both teams. I think that
Yes,
this was a very even matchup. I thought this was a coin flip. I think a lot of people maybe felt the same way. One team had
Yeah.
home court advantage. Whatever team you liked, you thought you think you had the edge. But this is a pretty even matchup, and I would be very surprised if anyone on any side took this lightly going into it.
No, I mean, and if you did, it's just because you're being a little bit of a homer, if you're being honest. So,
Right.
but
Right.
like I'm just saying, for most people that I listen to that are like talking heads or like do podcasts, things like that, everybody was saying at least 6 or 7. Nobody had this going in 5. So I think it's very, it's a very well respected matchup here. But one of the most interesting things to me too is like the Pacers have now proven that they can win in tough environments on the road against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. They did it last year in Game 7. They come here in Game 1 and get this one, and they, they shock the Knicks, and they kind of leave all the fans just speechless. I mean, the Garden was so quiet. I mean, it was loud in there for a while, and I loved the Garden. I love how energetic those fans are. I mean, they're some of the best fans in the world, but I just say like it was like eerie quiet when the Pacers started making this comeback.
Yeah.
The Knicks have not won yet in Indianapolis in the playoff game yet. So that is still something they have to that monkey they have to get off their back as well. And now, like you said, they're going to have to at least win one in Indianapolis, which it's doable. We've seen teams come on Indiana's home floor and beat them before in the playoffs. I mean, Milwaukee didn't do it this year, but the Cavaliers did it in Game 3. So it's not like it's impossible to do. I'm just saying it's much more difficult now because they don't have that confidence of, we can go in there and win one of these games. Every time they had close games there, the Pacers ended up pulling out a crazy victory, whether it was the Nembhard game winner or the Pacers just going on a big run. So I do think it does add a little bit extra pressure, just aside from being the home team and having that Game 1 loss the way that it did. Just the fact that they haven't had success in the Pacers building does probably also add a little bit of extra pressure to it.
Yeah, and another thing about this is going back to the Bucks series last year, when they were facing a team that had won a championship recently, they were trying to take them down. The Pacers maybe build the lead a little bit. Anytime the Bucks punched them, they'd be down for like a quarter. And it might be down for the game. It took them forever. And they would get so in their heads and upset. And whenever that kind of run would happen, they'd fall apart pretty easily. And then that's just part of the natural evolution of an NBA team. If they stick together for a long time, especially if they start out young, is that they have to learn the reps of, you can come back from this. You can stem the tide. You can stop it. And you can also go on and win the game. And the Pacers have just been going through a process of getting better and better and better at surviving those kind of punches and still being able to win. And now we're seeing them have these crazy comebacks where it's like kind of to an extreme. But, they took that. They came out hot in this game, but New York came out very hot as well. Not quite as hot, but they were right there. Then they started to take over. Then they held the lead once it got past about 40, 45 points, something like that. They held it almost to the end of the game, and the Pacers stayed with it the entire time. And then they took that huge punch and still were able to survive and go forward. And it's continuing to be impressive, the maturation of this team. You don't know when it's going to happen, when they're going to finally turn over the leaf. I think that they still had it in the regular season a little bit and had some struggles with it in the first couple of series. But this is the biggest, the quickest recovery from something like that I've seen the Pacers get. For them to be neck and neck for almost the entire time, take one big, huge knockout punch and still survive is yet another step up the ladder. And this is just it's a young team. Halliburton's like 24, like a lot of these guys are, under 25 years old, and they are still a team that's continuing to climb up the ladder. Another step in the process of growing into the kind of mature team that can just suffocate younger teams in the playoffs. They're closer to that than I thought that they would be right now in 2025, which I think is very cool. That's just seemed like something that might happen the next year or the year after that, but they're just kind of rapidly evolving in a way that's very exciting.
I would totally agree. I feel like they are almost ahead of schedule, but is it fair to say that because they just keep proving that they aren't ahead of schedule, that they're right on time? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a cliche statement, I think, a little bit, but I think that their experience last year and the coaching staff that they have, I don't think people realize how great this coaching staff is just to get these guys ready for these moments and to trust them in these pressure situations, being a young team. I mean, you've got probably one of the most mature young players in Tyrese Halliburton kind of leading this team, but you've also got your veterans out there that have been there before, that have done that with Pascal and TJ and Miles. At times they've seen stuff before, but like, it's just like the Nimhards and the Neesmiths. Like, these guys really have been in the league since Halliburton was here, and now they're just slowly starting to figure things out, and they've got all the trust from their coaching staff. And even a guy like Ben Shepherd's got the trust of his coaching staff to go in there down 17 points in the fourth quarter to go out there and make a difference. And so I just think that they just implore their players to just, hey, you know what? Go out there and do what you can do best. And we believe in you. And I think that just speaks volumes to why this team is where they're at, is because they have a great build of how they've been put together, from Kevin Pritchard to Chad Buchanan and Rick Carlisle, kind of identifying the players they want for the system, number one. But number two, just the way that this coaching staff has just worked so well together to get these guys ready for these moments.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that they're very much ahead of schedule. I mean, this is a team that started 10 and 15.
Yeah, you're right.
And they had some injuries that were kind of a part of that, but like, they had plenty of opportunities to be much better than that. They might have had a little bit of a slow start, but not to that degree. And we saw them drop a lot of games against very easy teams, just kind of really honestly, probably out of a sense of immaturity, just not really being ready to crush a team that was beneath them, so to speak, as far as talent goes. That was in October. It was Halloween. This is May. It's the same year. It's not even a year later. And now we're seeing a team that is like controlling game one in Madison Square Garden and making this incredible comeback, which is the third comeback of the year. The fact that they went from there to here that quickly is nuts. And you give a lot of credit to the coaching staff, and I completely agree with that. It's there's always two sides of the coin of like, maybe you throw in Ben Shepherd late, might seem a little bit weird, but like, also part of that was, I want to know what Ben Shepherd's going to do. If we're going to lose this game, we're going to lose this game. I just want to see how he's going to do in Brunson, and then I have that information for the next game. Their ability to constantly tinker with things like that, do some strange things, and see if it works, and stick with the stuff that does and abandon the stuff that doesn't, and have the confidence that they can sustain a few minutes of that while still being able to go out and play a great game. That is giving them an edge. It's giving them an edge in every playoff series. We're seeing it again in this series. They'll throw out something weird for 3-5 minutes. And sometimes it might look like, what the hell are they thinking? And sometimes it's like, oh, Obi Toppin is the solution to the rebounding problem. Yeah. Who knew? I mean, that's going to solve everything. I mean, like, that you can't get the good of that kind of outside the box solution without taking the bad of, we're going to guard Brunson with TJ McConnell for a few minutes and just see what happens. And I guess that's bad, so we're not going to do that anymore. That's that ability to trust the bench, give the bench heavy minutes, continue to tinker while still playing the rest of the game with confidence, is, I think, just something that separates the Pacers from a lot of other teams, or really, to be direct, this separates Rick Carlisle from a lot of other coaches.
I would agree with that. So as we do on this show to kind of end things here, just to kind of wrap it up, we do give out player awards for the game. So I'm just going to go through them quickly. We've got our Mel Daniels MVP. We got our Feisty Foster player of the game. We've got our Ron Artest defensive player of the game. And then we've got our Reggie Miller clutch player of the game. So I'll let you pick our MVP here for our Mel Daniels MVP. Who do you think was the MVP for the Pacers in this game?
I don't see.
It's tough.
I mean, it should be. It really should be Halliburton, but you got to get to Nesmith. I mean, Nesmith's the MVP. I mean, it's just no matter what else impact that Halliburton had in this game, that comeback just does not exist if Nesmith doesn't catch fire. For all the other things that they did well, that's the reason why they ended up winning this game ultimately. So I'm giving it to Nesmith.
Okay, I didn't know if you'd want to give him the Reggie Miller clutch player of the game because of the 20-point fourth quarter, the 5 threes at the end.
See, it's like he's going to get the MVP fairly rarely, and then Halliburton hit the little bouncer. So I'm fine
with whatever you want.
And he threw the choke, so that's where I'm going. I'm giving Halliburton clutch. I'm giving Nesmith one.
Okay, let's just keep it moving. Then I'm not going to argue with you. I think it's great stuff. Defensive player of the game. Who would you give that to?
It's as Coach Pop would say, it's not a defensive stop until you get the rebound.
Okay.
It does, and so I'm giving it to Obi Toppin. Like he really changed the trajectory of especially the bench units of being able to stem the tide and rebounded enough that they could win those minutes. I think is the only Ben Shepherd was in the positive, of course, because he was there to come back, but he was the only other bench player in the positive.
Mm-hmm.
So defensive player maybe seems kind of a weird choice, but I'll go with Toppin on this one.
Hey, like you said, you got to have the rebounds to make it matter the most because possessions are, another way of getting a stop. So I'm fine with it. I don't have a disagreement. I think when you give up 135 points, it's hard to find hey, this is our defensive stopper tonight because I don't think there was a whole lot of defensive stopping. And maybe you could say this the team in general playing their wear down effect defense and just making the Knicks be able to shoot short shots at the end of the game. But that's not really a player. So I guess our last one here would be our Feisty Foster hustle player of the game. I would maybe lean McConnell for how he kind of started things off in the first quarter.
Yeah, overall, the impact was a little bit mixed, but it was a situation where the bench was really kind of grasping at straws, and he was just outrunning everybody for layups, doing the old McConnell thing. He did get absolutely destroyed when he went to it a little bit one too many times, which I'd always love. That's kind of like it's part of the McConnell experience. He'll get 2 crazy layups or 3 crazy layups, and then he'll try a 4th, and he'll just get absolutely swatted into oblivion, and that's part of the experience too. So yeah, I agree. Let's give it to TJ. It sounds good.
All right, there are your player awards for today's episode. Obviously, Dave is filling in for Facci today for those, so that always makes it a little bit more fun to get someone else's opinion on things. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Any final words you have on tonight's game and the rest of the series, or are you good to wrap it up?
Oh, I'm just a little speechless. It just no matter what happens in this playoffs, my advice to anybody would be to cherish this. Like this the experience of watching this game, the feeling afterwards, all the crazy moments. There are a lot of experiences that you can have in the playoffs, including winning a championship. There's not a lot of times that you see games like that. And ultimately, for me, I would love to see the Indiana Pacers win a championship. It would make me very, very happy. But I want to see great basketball in women. And when that great basketball is correlated with the team that I cheer for, it's like basketball nirvana. But like these games are special. You'll go through a decade where you never see anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
And, not to sound like I'm 90 years old. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough that, there's been long stretches where it was just having one game like this over a 5-year stretch would have been a miracle. So it's easy to get spoiled because of how many times it's happened in this playoff run. But I think that this may just be Pacers fan coat, but like games like this are more valuable than like a division championship or something. If they went to the finals with an injured Knicks team in 4 boring games and got stomped in the finals, it would be less exciting than this.
Yeah,
this is what you're here for, and so it was really blessed to watch a game like that, and it just feel really blessed. It was just had so many games like this in this playoff run. It's very special.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and I would agree, and I would echo everything you just said. Do not take this for granted because it does not come around all the time. LeBron James is not on this roster, and so it's not like you're going to the NBA Finals every year for like a decade straight. No, I mean it takes a lot of work, and the last time the team made it to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, you had a podcast talking about this team. So that was the Roy Hibbert, Paul George, Lance Stevenson, David West, George Hill team. So that was a lot of fun, and I'll never forget those moments. And I was reminiscing about that today when I was prepping for this pod and knowing you were going to come on. I remember back in the day when you could buy the games off iTunes and download them to your phone, or you could even have them on your iPod, whatever. Like the big one, the Nano, not the Nano. I forget what it was. There was another iPod version there where you could watch videos on it, and so I would download them and just down them on iTunes, watch them on my computer, and I would just relive those games where the Pacers won. I wouldn't buy the ones they lost, just the ones they won, because that's what I wanted to remember from that team. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I was just hungry for it. I was starving for that to happen again, and we never really got to see it again. And then all of a sudden, Rick Carlisle comes back, they assemble this team together, and it feels like this team actually has more of a legit chance of getting to the finals than that team actually did, even though they were really close against LeBron and those teams. Here they are now, 1 game up on the Knicks, and I think people feel like there's more of a chance here to at least make it to the NBA Finals with an opportunity to play Minnesota or OKC. So, it's a lot of small markets. We're not used to seeing this in the NBA, but I think it's great for the league just to have some parity and just to have some different blood out there and different young new faces kind of taking the league by storm. And if anybody is complaining about the Lakers not being in it, this game right here is exactly what you want if you're a basketball fan. It doesn't matter if you're a Lakers, Celtics, or Dallas Mavericks fan or whatever. This is the apex of basketball, and I would just say the way that the Pacers have been playing and the way that this game was won, like this is everything you dream of when you're thinking of I want to be a fan and root for a team.
Yeah. Well said. Couldn't said it better.
Anyway, I'm rambling now because it's late. It's 12:30 at night, so we're gonna go ahead and sign off here. But Dave, thanks again for coming on. It was a lot of fun chatting with you again. And as the Pacers say, let's go Pacers. So go Sirs, and hopefully they can continue on this hot streak and play great basketball and get another victory here on Friday.
Let's go Pacers.
This is for you, Indiana.